So inshallah we're going to start, just to recap, because it's been quite a big break that we had. So we're going to recap. We were talking about before the Hajj break that in the durus that we had. We talked about the conquest of Makkah. We have reached now the 8th of Hijrah. And we talked about, we already finished this dars as well. So the conquest of Makkah took place. Just quickly we're going to recap, because actually I marked it here. We're supposed to talk about the Battle of Hunayn. However, we're going to quickly recap this inshallah. The Prophet and the Quraysh, remember in Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, the treaty took place between Muslims and Quraysh for the very first time. Quraysh, they never listened to the Muslims, they hated the Muslims. I'm talking about every chance they found, they attacked the Muslims. Every opportunity they found, they attacked the Prophet and they were always plotting and making plans against the Muslims, and they were very jealous of the Muslim community because they were growing in big number in Medina. So they tried so much. They tried it in Badr, they tried it in Uhud, they tried it in Khandaq, they tried it so many times in other occasions as well. Every time they tried, they were failing because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help was with those who believe in Allah. Then finally at the end they realized that in order to negotiate with the people of Medina, Muslims in other words, Quraysh, they thought that we should have a treaty. The term was done for 10 years, there will be no fight between Quraysh and the Muslims. And we talked about it before. All the points and in the term was against it was going against the wish of the Muslims of Medina. However, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was telling the Sahaba, do sabr, inshallah, okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us the final outcome will be for us. So much that some of the companions, they were shaken by it. They're saying, like, it's said very clearly here that anyone comes from Makkah, we have to send them back. But anyone come from Makkah, we have to send them back. Whether they but any of ours, if anyone goes from here, they'll never send them back. It makes no sense. So people want to come and accept Islam, and they leave Makkah, they come to Medina. We have to keep them here. They said, no, you have to send them back. The Prophet said, okay, all the boxes were ticked, but alhamdulillah, as you know what happened after the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, subhanallah, the Muslims, they went around Arabia everywhere they could. Before they couldn't go because of the fear that the Quraysh will attack them and they will loot the caravan, they will defeat them, they will fight them, they will confiscate the caravans and the goods. They're also going to intercept the caravans. All these things, this is the fear they had. But what happened? Okay, after the treaty took place, they were roaming around everywhere. So you could meet the disbelievers in Jerusalem. Muslims were there, Abu Sufyan were there, but now Abu Sufyan can't do anything because of the term. Now they're meeting everyone in Jerusalem, they're meeting them in Syria, they're meeting them in Basra of Syria, and everywhere they're meeting, no problems. And the Muslims, they took advantage of that because they went to all these nearby tribes, inviting them towards Islam. They were coming into Islam one by one. One by one they were coming into Islam. This was the biggest benefit of the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. The Prophet ﷺ, he took another advantage of this treaty, that he wrote letters to all the leaders. Okay, for example, the Prophet ﷺ wrote to Heraclius, and we talked about that as well. Remember, he was the Roman leader, the Byzantine leader. The Prophet ﷺ, all the leaders of the world at that time nearby, he wrote letters to all of them, inviting them towards Islam. Then what happened? One of the companions, Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anhu, and also Amr ibn As radiallahu anhu, they also embraced Islam. So all this kind of thing has happened. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam the conquest of Makkah. As you know, when the conquest of Makkah took place, that was an amazing plan, as you could say, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he thought for the next 10 years there will be no fight, etc. But we know what happened. The Quraysh, they were the first to break the term, and they terminated the treaty. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam suddenly, he entered into Mecca. When the Prophet of Allah entered in Mecca, now the Quraysh, they didn't know what to do because they couldn't go anywhere. And they thought anyone who comes as a leader, as a warrior, as a successor, okay, then he destroys the town. He destroys the town, he takes everyone as prisoners, he kills every one of them. But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was smiling at every one of them. And they said that, Mother, what do you think? Okay, what do you think that I will do to you? You tell me. Okay, and the reason the Prophet of Allah asked them, just to see what do they know about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the man that they've been fighting for approximately 10 years now, or 8 years. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, ماذا تظنون أني فاعل بكم? What do you think that I'm going to do with you? Okay, and they said that أخ كريم. Ibn Akhil Karim, you are a noble brother. You are the son of a noble brother. We haven't seen anything bad when you were here in Mecca. See, this is what the Prophet of Allah wanted the whole world to hear. They were fighting me for what? I've done nothing to them. I grew up in their own town. They know everything about me. You know, the day the Prophet of Allah was migrated from Mecca to Medina, the Prophet of Allah said that his house was full of goods and amana and the trust of his local people. He said to Ali, I want you to give all this back to the people. So they were fighting him, but leaving the goods in his house as well. So the Prophet of Allah wanted the whole world to witness this. That I entered Mecca, and I could have basically killed every one of them and avenged what they have been doing. But the Prophet of Allah said, what do you think that I'm going to do to you? They said straight away what the Prophet of Allah knew they were going to say. He goes, no, you're a noble man. We believe that you will treat us with respect. And they were in the wrong. Rasulullah said exactly what you said I'm going to do. اذهبوا فأنتم الطلقاء. Please, whatever you want to do. You want to go, you could go. Whatever, you want to go to your house, you could go back to your house. You want to stay in Mecca, then there are conditions to stay, you could stay here as well. You want to locate yourself anywhere, these are the prisoners, remember, prisoners of wars. But the Prophet prisoners of war, but the Prophet ﷺ said, whatever you want to do, you could do it. When they saw this akhlaq of the Prophet ﷺ, you know, they were taken back. So many embraced Islam, but so many still they were angry because they had, so they actually departed from Mecca. The Prophet of Allah let them go. Abu Sufyan, he said, remember my promise. He said that he was the leader. He already embraced Islam as well. But he said to the Prophet ﷺ, although he's the leader, he wanted one thing. He wanted a bit of his reputation to stay in his community. So he said, like if anyone were to enter my house, what will happen? The Prophet ﷺ said, anyone enter the house of Abu Sufyan, then I give them also, safety and security, that nothing will happen. So Abu Sufyan, he felt good. He says, see, even I get reputation, even Islam gives me reputation as well. He wanted that, the Prophet of Allah gave it to him as well. What we're trying to say is that the Prophet ﷺ, he entered into the Kaaba, and this is how you have to enter into Kaaba. The house of Allah is there. There should be no bloodshed. There should be no fights. The Prophet of Allah, he told the whole ummah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised me that He's going to take me back to Mecca. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took me back. Allah took him back a year before that. Remember when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam done their Umrah al-Qada, which already we talked about. Then, just before the Fath Mecca, we talked about the Hatib ibn Abi Balta'a. He wrote a letter, remember, secretly revealing the secret of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that is about to come to Mecca and is going to attack. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Ali radiallahu ta'ala and a few others, and he said that you will go to a certain area, it's called Rawdatul Khakh. When you get to that area, a woman got a letter, I want to bring that letter. Subhanallah, what we learn from this, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is someone that is always getting revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in the matters of the deen, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, every movement is getting help from Allah. This is why he's Rasulullah. So our iman and the iman of the people increases. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how did he know that this woman will reach that destination by that time? And the Prophet of Allah said, you will see her exactly the same. It's like someone says that, someone has taken this letter and they left half an hour ago. You know what? They will be in Ilford now next to the train station. You will find them there. Go. I mean, again, we have to take care of the traffic and all that. The Prophet says, this is how, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving him that information. That tells you the weight of revelation and wahi. Moving on, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he spoke to Hatib ibn Abi Balta'a. He said, how could you do this? This is wrong. And in the law of Islam, this is treason. Okay, this is khiyana. And the penalty for khiyana is death. When the Prophet ﷺ, he wanted to speak to him, there was a big crowd when the Prophet of Allah was talking to him. Umar was there, radiallahu ta'ala. Umar said, "O Prophet of Allah, he's a munafiq. A Muslim would never do that what he has done. He's a munafiq, and if you please give me the permission, I want to chop his head off." Now Umar radiallahu ta'ala, I know it's very harsh, yeah? He's a man of principle. But one thing though, have you noticed, Umar always says, if you give me permission. He doesn't hate anyone. Basically, he wants to make a point. That if the Prophet of Allah tells us, we'll do it. But he's still saying that, Prophet of Allah, I've got my sword ready, I just need your permission. Okay? That's what Umar ibn Khattab said. And it just tells you that you always have to ask permission. The Prophet of Allah is there. He's the lawgiver, he's the shari'. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Umar, do you know who he is? He is someone who attended the battle, participated in Battle of Badr. And Allah told me, all the participants of Battle of Badr, they are all forgiven. And Allah said, tell them whatever they want to do, let them do. I have forgiven them. So he is from the one that Allah has promised me that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already forgiven him. So let's listen to him now. When the Prophet of Allah spoke to him, why did you write that letter? And then he mentioned that, oh Prophet of Allah had families there and they were getting tortured. And every one of the muhajirin here, they have families there as well. However, because they have, their lineage is very good, they have all the family members there, this is the reason they get help. But however, I don't have anyone. I got no one, no Prophet of Allah. I'm an outsider. So I thought if I were to write a little letter, they would get some sort of like security, safety, some sort of bounties, some sort of help and assistance from Quraysh. But oh Prophet of Allah, I swear to Allah, I had yaqeen that this letter of mine is not going to go against anything that what Allah has decreed, that is, you will be victorious and we will be entering into Makkah. So his iman was there, strong. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ smiled and he said to everyone, Ama innahu qad sadaq. Do you know what? He has spoken the truth. So what we learn from this is that we should never be judgmental. Just because of one incident of an individual, we should never forget all the good things that he has done. He probably made a mistake. One mistake, everyone, we're human, we can make mistake. Okay, someone makes a mistake, okay, because of that mistake that he made, no matter how big this mistake is, don't forget all the good things that he has done. Okay, don't just start calling him a hypocrite or start calling him a fasiq, etc. We don't have revelation. We have to always find excuses for our Muslim brother. And this is what we learn, inshallah. Then we moved on. That the Prophet ﷺ, he found the key of the Kaaba, and that belonged to a man called Uthman ibn Talha. That family, they had the key. Okay? And then the Muslim, they got the key of him, was give the key here. Today the Prophet of Allah is going to have the key. And the Prophet ﷺ, he really used that key, opened the door of the Kaaba, went inside there, removed all the idols, etc. When the Prophet of Allah came out, he said that, what is Uthman? That man was Uthman bin Talha, he wasn't a Muslim. He said, Uthman, come forward. He said, what? He said, this key, I believe some of my companions took it from you. He said, yes. He said, khudhu khalidan talida. I want to take this key, and I promise you that this key will remain in your family. And only a zalim, a transgressor, an oppressor will take it and snatch it away from you. This is what the Prophet of Allah said. Uthman took it and he said, wow, I'm not even a Muslim. Okay? But my family, they were the custodian of the Kaaba in terms of opening and closing the door. And the Prophet of Allah gave it back to me. Later on he became Muslim, by the way, Uthman bin Talha. This is the same Uthman bin Talha who assisted Salama, I remember, to do hijrah. We talked about that as well. You know that Salama, she was the only one lady crossing the desert. He helped her. Now, till today, Uthman bin Talha's family, they're known as the Shaybi family. They still have the key. And even today as well, okay, when they wash the Kaaba, they make a big line. And then he is invited, his family members continues. One of the family members comes, he opens the door, and then they honor. And people cry, remembering what the Prophet of Allah said 1,400 and over, 1,438, 39 years ago. What the Prophet of Allah said such a long time ago, 1,400 years ago, they still remember this. And this family, they still have the key today. Because the Prophet said, Khalidan, it will remain in the family forever. And the Prophet of Allah said, anyone who takes it away from you, then they are zalim. So the king and etc., they think to take the key away from him. They will know the whole world call them zalim. And in the language of the Prophet of Allah, he is cursed. So they respect this family member. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We also learn from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Fath Makkah that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam, after he done the khutbah, something happened. The Ansar, they were talking to one another. And they saying that, you know what, the Prophet Muhammad, he came back to Makkah now. Since he came back to Makkah, what's going to happen? He'll come back to his own house now. And since he came back to his own house, this is Makkah, this is his homeland. He grew up here, he was born here. He's not coming back to Medina again, guys. So the Prophet ﷺ, this kind of words he heard. And this is very interesting. The Prophet ﷺ called them. He said, what are you guys talking about? He said that, no, Prophet of Allah. He goes, no, you are talking about something, tell me. And then they said, oh, Prophet of Allah, you came back to your family members, your house, this is your land. Obviously, we think that you're going to stay. The Prophet of Allah said, what did I say to you when I first met you? The Prophet of Allah took him back. Do you remember when I first met you? Which was 3 years prior to the Prophet of Allah migrating to Medina. When I met you in that area, in Al-Aqaba, in Mina. On the first time when the Prophet ﷺ met them, right? He said, when I met 6 from Khazraj, or 5 from Khazraj, 1 from, Aus, do you remember? And then I met you again in the second year, and again in the third year, 3 times I had the meeting. What did I say to you? I said, that time I said, Mahya, al-Mahya, al-Mahya mahyakum, wal-mamatu mamatukum. Do you remember this? They couldn't understand what the Prophet of Allah said at that time. He said, I will live with you and I will die with you. So already the Prophet of Allah told them this, before. They said, the Prophet of Allah, you're going to migrate from Makkah to Medina. A time will come, they even said this, a time will come when you will be all powerful and you will have maybe the whole Arabia. Then what are we going to get? We are the people of Medina. You're going to just abandon us. The Prophet of Allah at that time said, no, al-mahya mahyakum, wal-mamatu mamatukum. I will live with you and I will die with you. Then when the Prophet of Allah said this, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, they said, Allahu Akbar, he is coming back with us. And they just apologized to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Something else we learn from this, isn't it? A prophet, he knows where he will die. This is something Allah has given to the prophets only. None of us have that. وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ بِأَيِّ أَرْضٍ تَمُوتُ. No soul knows in which area, land, which country, which area that it will die. But the prophets, they know. How do they know? Because Allah sent revelation to them and they will know. That's why Musa asked Allah, Allah, when death comes to me, because he knew that he will pass away somewhere in the desert in near Jerusalem. Because that was the punishment of the people not listening to Musa. So he said that Allah, when death comes to me, at least let me be near to Jerusalem as possible. Okay, and this is exactly what happened. The Prophet ﷺ said, when I went for Isra and Mi'raj, I passed by the grave of Musa ﷺ. Not only that, I saw Musa ﷺ praying in his grave. The prophets are alive in their grave. This one thing I would like to say, that, people, they debate too much. What do you mean he's alive in their grave? We can't debate this because we have no knowledge of it. It's called Hayatun Barzakhiyya. It's a Barzakh life. The prophets alive there, we don't have that knowledge. We don't. Is he eating, drinking? Those kinds of questions are not appropriate. And our scholars have been debating for a very long time this stuff. Yeah? The reason why I say it's not appropriate because this is the knowledge that we won't have. The Prophet of Allah told us that the Prophet Musa was alive in his grave. We believe in Rasulullah now. The details, how he's alive, etc. we don't know. So this kind of debate has caused a lot of problems. We should not go to this. Whatever the ulama have written, we respect the ulama's opinion and we respect both sides on that. That's what we should do. So Musa was alive. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that I saw him praying. And the Prophet of Allah said that if you guys were with me, I would have showed you, I would have shown all of you his grave. It's right next outside Jerusalem and the area is called Al-Kathib Al-Ahmar. Subhanallah, the area is still there and Musa alayhi salam is still buried there. And I myself 3 times, alhamdulillah, had the chance to visit. So any brothers, inshallah, ever go to Palestine, they will take you straight there. Because as soon as you go from Jordan, you enter into an area called Jericho, which is known as Ariha, Jericho, and then you drive for another 10 minutes, you're there. First stop is called Maqam Nabi Musa, alayhi salatu wasalam. But this was something the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told them, and it was really amazing that because the Prophet of Allah, he doesn't, he already told the Sahaba that I am not going to stay in Makkah, I'm going back to Medina. Not only I'm going back to Medina, when death comes to me, it will come to Medina. But this is what I will be buried. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he already knew this as well. What happened? The aftermath of Fath Makkah, the Prophet of Allah, he came back to Medina, where subhanallah, all the local tribes of Makkah, there were so many by the way, one by one they were coming into Islam. Because they were afraid of Quraysh. Now they realized Quraysh, they have weakened, they have no power, they started coming into Islam. There was one man, he secretly stayed behind in Makkah, and he wanted to basically attack the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet of Allah, when he was in Makkah, when he was doing tawaf, when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was doing tawaf, okay, he saw him, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw him, he went to him. Because the Prophet through revelation knew that this guy is planning to find a chance to attack you. So the Prophet, he walked towards him, and he believed this, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He went towards him, and they said, your name is Fudala ibn Umayr? He said, yes. Are you Fudala ibn Umayr? He said, yes. He said, you were saying something to yourself. Allah, this is a revelation. He said to him, I'm going to find a chance, I'm going to kill him. He said, you were talking to yourself just earlier, you were saying something to yourself. He was shaken by this. What? I was just talking to myself. He said, what do you mean? He said, you said something to yourself about, you were thinking about something. Just say it. What is it? He said, Kuntu azkurullah. No, I was just remembering Allah. So he lied, right? But this is the akhlaq of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet of Allah, he started laughing. He's supposed to get angry, right? You liar! The Prophet of Allah laughed. He laughed so loud, subhanAllah. The Prophet ﷺ laughed, and then he said to him, Astaghfirullah, say Astaghfirullah. He said, Astaghfirullah. Then the Prophet ﷺ put his hand onto his chest like this, where the iman, where the heart is, like that. Okay? Now he's reporting after this. Fudala said, Wallahi, ما رفع يده عن صدري حتى ما من خلق الله شيء أحب إلي منه. By Allah, the moment the Prophet of Allah put his hand onto my chest and he removed it, I looked at him again and I realized that out of everyone on this earth, the most dearest person to me is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then Fudala, he said that, oh Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, can I go back to my family members? He said, do whatever you want to do. Okay, he goes back to his wife and his family members. He said that all of us, they were already made a plan to depart from Mecca. They will kill the Prophet of Allah. He said, have the mission been accomplished? He said, yes, we all become Muslim today. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. This is the mission. Allah wants to give hidayah to someone, Allah will give hidayah. Okay, this is also something that happened as well. So as I said to you, one by one, lots of tribes are coming into Islam. And when the tribes are coming into Islam, then the following verse was revealed. إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا فَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ وَاسْتَغْفِرْهُ إِنَّهُ كَانَ تَوَّابًا. And when the help of Allah and victory comes, and you see people entering into the deen of Allah in groups, then glorify the praise of your Lord and seek His forgiveness. إِنَّهُ كَانَ تَوَّابًا. Indeed He is most forgiving. When this verse was revealed, some of the companions, they realized only the super talented one we're talking about. The likes of Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And he said that the Prophet of Allah is telling him to istighfar. I mean, the time is here for him to go. Because istighfar happens at the end of the mission. When you finish our salam, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, what do you say? Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. At the completion of an act, you do istighfar. That means the nubuwwah time has come to an end. Allah is telling him to do your istighfar because it's your time to now to come and meet me. They understood this as well. So they were already getting ready for that in their mind. The Prophet ﷺ, he left Mecca, and there was one very young man. His name was Itab ibn Usayd. The Prophet ﷺ, he made him the responsible person, okay, in Mecca. Basically, he will be the Amir. And people will consult with him and speak to him in terms of looking after Mecca, Kaaba, he will lead the Salah and everything. The Prophet would have left him. By the way, he was 19 years of age. This is the most amazing thing. The Prophet ﷺ, it was a very important lesson for the Quraysh, because Quraysh, all the leaders were seniors. Look at Abu Lahab, Abu Jahl, okay, Abu Sufyan. They were looking for those kind of... The Prophet ﷺ is treating the people of Makkah that when it comes to Islam, Islam doesn't look at talent. Islam look at the suitability of the job. Okay? Someone young could be imam. Someone very young, he could be a teacher as well, if he's got the qualification, etc. And we Muslims will respect that. Alhamdulillah, this is what we will do. Okay? We have, various elderly people in our congregation. We have young imam leading salah, etc. In Taraweeh, we get very young kids as well. This is the beauty of Islam. Okay, we had one scholar in Islam. I want you to remember his name, Shaykh. Shaykh, one of the Mufassir of the Quran, Ibn Jarir al-Tabari. Very, one of the first to write tafsir of the Quran, by the way, which still have is compiled. Beautiful tafsir book. Ibn Kathir, rahimahullah ta'ala, he takes everything almost from Ibn Jarir al-Tabari. He said that I remember the Quran at the age of 7. I've got 4 minutes left. I remember the Quran at the age of 7, and I led Salah at the age of 8. And no one had a problem. When he said led Salah, the Taraweeh Salah, etc., like that, all this nawaf, no one had. This is how we always respect, because in his community at that time, there wasn't anyone memorized the Quran like that. So he was like, and he was reading Quran with tajweed, so they always to make him imam. This is the beauty of Islam. This all comes from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He wanted to tell everyone like that this is a community. They're always looking for people with years and years and years of experience, which is good. But sometimes situation like this, when someone's have the talents, have the skills, then they should be also given this kind of profession as well. That's what the Prophet of Allah did, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. By the way, he did exactly the same thing. Inshallah, we'll talk about it towards the, we'll talk about it in our few lessons later. Towards the end, when he made Usama ibn Zayd, he was also 18 or 17-year-old boy. He was the leader of the troops going to Byzantium to fight against the Byzantines to Syria. Guess who was in that troop? Abu Bakr and Umar. And he was the leader. We'll talk about that later on. The Prophet ﷺ, he always had an eye on the youth, always had young people looking for the talents. Subhanallah, he always had an eye amongst the Prophet ﷺ. He had, he's Nabi of Allah, Rasul of Allah. But at the same time, he was aware of people's skills as well. He was aware of the people's piety, and he was always encouraging them and pushing them. The Prophet ﷺ, when he used to enter Makkah, enter Medina, so he used to be on his own in his camel. Any children that he sees to pick them up, come. And children, they remember this. And subhanAllah, when I read all this, I never understood it. But later on, when I started teaching hadith, the same children who were young, they are now narrating hadith. And they saying that I remember what the Prophet of Allah, they're old now, by the way. And they say, what happened? The Prophet of Allah, once he did wudu, and he had water, and he threw the water on my face. You got? And because of this, his face is shining. He's 50, 60-year-old, etc. Another time, another Sahabi goes, I remember when the Prophet of Allah was a baby, my mother took me to see him. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, my mom told me that he put his hand on my head. Okay? Like that. In the front, just in the front like that. He's narrating the story when he's 65. All his hair is grey except for the area the Prophet of Allah touched him. So they all remember of that. The Prophet ﷺ, young children, young boys, young girls, etc. He always had an eye on them, give them advice and etc. Because he knew these will be their leaders of tomorrow. This is why, inshaAllah ta'ala, alhamdulillah, this masjid is very known for this, so it's okay. Our masajid, we get very upset when we see young children coming and stuff like that. They bother you, make noise, etc. No, we need to tolerate this because they will be the one who will be, inshallah ta'ala, taking and looking after the masjid and etc. after we go. So this is something the Prophet of Allah always did this one. This is what we learn from this, by appointing someone who was very young and he left him behind. Very quickly, inshallah ta'ala, after the conquest of Makkah, alhamdulillah, we all thought, alhamdulillah, the Prophet of Allah has got Makkah and Medina now. Alhamdulillah, everything, and the surah is revealed that it was time to go. So all the fitna and fasad and corruption will come to an end. No, there was some people still left. There's one tribe called Hawazin. This tribe was a very big tribe. Okay, they were actually, I have a map here which I can't show you, but anyway, they were actually, they were made of 5-6 tribes. So big tribe. They were so big that they actually almost bigger than Quraysh. And they always hated Quraysh. And they were always in competition against Quraysh. So they thought that, they're supposed to accept Islam. Because all the nearby tribes, they all accepted Islam. But Hawazin said, no, we're going to defeat the Muslims. One of the reasons why Quraysh, they lost because they were not tactically prepared. And they've been getting weaker and weaker in Badr. They had casualties. In Uhud, they had casualties. In Khandaq, they had casualties. And in other interceptions that took place, they had casualties. So they became very weak. They don't know how to fight. We know how to fight because we've been doing it for a very long time. The problem with the Hawazin is that they were located in such an important area. It's the trade route to Baghdad. That time they were called Baghdad. Trade route to Kufa and Basra. So it was very important because the trade was a very important route, as you know, and it was very difficult for the Muslims to also go to Sham as well because they used to intercept them as well. So the Prophet ﷺ, the people of Makkah going to Sham, they were also intercepting them as well because Hawazin was between Makkah and Medina in between. Now the Prophet ﷺ, he found out about this when he found out that these people are not going to accept Islam because they said, we're not going to accept Islam because if we could defeat Muslims, then we could basically say to the Quraysh, that what you couldn't do, we have done it. So they also had their own ego as well. Someone said, we don't think we could fight them because before they were in Medina, now they were the people of Makkah as well. So let's just become Muslim. They said, no, we're going to fight them. We are better than Quraysh. We are more stronger, we have more weapons. Yes? And so they got together. The Prophet is already in Medina now. From Medina, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in the month of Shawwal, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, it was the 8th of Hijri, again towards the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam with 10,000 companions, he departed from Medina, okay, to fight Hawazin, to put an end to the disbelievers of Hawazin. When the Prophet of Allah came, he was coming towards Makkah. Some of the people of Makkah, they joined Rasulullah, the 2,000 of them. So it became 12,000 now. And remember, the 2,000 that joined from Makkah, their imani nurture and the tarbiyah was not done. So they never understood Islam and Iman properly. They just became Muslim. They need to learn more, right? And so they just start boasting and saying that, wow, in the desert, 10,000 walking, it's a big number. 12,000 walking, said, look at our number, we are big in number, we will be undefeated, and stuff like that. They were saying things that are against the teaching of Islam. Islam is against boasting. Islam believes in humility and humbleness, believes in that you should believe in the words of Allah and humble yourself for the words of Allah, those kind of things. Okay, and because they were talking like that, Allah wanted to discipline them, teach them a lesson. So what happened when the fight started? The Muslims were losing the fight. They had casualties as well. People, they were defeated in such a way that the Muslims had to. It's just like Uhud all over again. They were pushed back, and then the rumors went that the Prophet of Allah is killed as well. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay, this is what happened. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he cried to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he made dua. And then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he called Abbas radiallahu ta'ala and said, you know Abbas, he had a very loud voice, tell everyone that I'm alive. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he himself also had to speak and shout it at them. And then when the Muslims realized the Prophet of Allah was alive, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then they start retreating. Okay, and then round 2 started again, which we'll talk about inshallah in our next lesson. And then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he made more dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah sent down angels. And then the defeat turned into a victory. So that detail, inshallah, we'll talk about it in our next session. But the most important thing was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was telling them, لَقَدْ نَصَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ, Allah indeed has helped you فِي مَوَاطِنَ كَثِيرًا, in many, many battles. وَيَوْمَ حُنَيْنٍ, and the day of Hunayn, the mistake that you made, إِذْ أَعْجَبَتْكُمْ كَثْرَتُكُمْ, that your big numbers made you too happy. فَلَمْ تُغْنِ عَنْكُمْ شَيْئًا, and the numbers didn't even help you. So the teaching of Allah is this, that it's not the numbers that will give you victory, it's how much yaqeen and iman you have, and what and how much guidelines that you take from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were so disorganized that day that they wouldn't even listen to the instruction of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is why they were defeated in the very beginning. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah says, ثُمَّ أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ سَكِينَتَهُ عَلَى رَسُولِهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sent down sakina, tranquility to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one to the Prophet of Allah, وَعَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and then also to the believers. So they all stood firm in the battlefield. وَأَنزَلَ جُنُودًا لَمْ تَرَوْهَا. Allah said, then I sent down troops that you couldn't see them. They were the angels. وَعَذَّبَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. Allah punished those who disbelieve. وَذَلِكَ جَزَاءُ الْكَافِرِينَ. This is the punishment, reward for those who disbelieve. Inshallah, we'll talk more about that in our next session. We also will talk about the final battle, you could say, one of the last in Mecca, was called the Ghazwa of Ta'if. Ta'if was another city that they still didn't accept Islam. And then the last decisive battle against, they could say that the Byzantine at the time of the Prophet it took place in Tabuk. Okay, we'll talk about that as well. These are the 3 things that we'll talk about inshallah in our next session. Any questions from anyone, inshallah?
Well, next session will be next week.
Next week. So next session is next Friday, inshallah. Okay, so we'll start from Hunayn, and we'll talk about Hunayn and Ta'if and Ghazwa of Tabuk, inshallah. These are the 3 things that we'll talk about. We're coming towards the very end now. It's going to be the 9th Hijri, and then it will be the 10th Hijri for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.